So tonight we're going to talk about the Open Public Records Act and the Open Public Meetings Act. We have John Paff here. John is probably the most knowledgeable person in New Jersey about OPRA. In 2014 he was honored as the year's sole award winner and 15th inductee into the State Open Government Freedom of Information Hall of Fame. Known as the Heroes of the 50 States, the joint initiative of the National Freedom of Information Coalition and the Society of Professional Journalists recognizes the recipient's long and steady effort to preserve and protect the free flow of information about state and local governments that's vital to the public as a democracy. And I mentioned the Society of Professional Journalists because that's the origin of New Jersey FOG. I am still a member of the board of SPJ, and we had a discussion, myself and a guy named Joe Terrell, who were both reporters at the time, in 2000 with a reporter from the Associated Press named Mark Middlestad. And Mark was kind of surprised that there was no open government organization in New Jersey. And of course there was also no OPRA at the time. There was an OPMA, but no OPRA. So we had lunch with him, and he suggested and kind of laid out that we should start an organization that would have its goal as first obtaining an open public records passage, and then secondly making sure it was up to date and do all the things that John is doing and a lot of us, the rest of us are doing. So the three of us, Joe Terrell, myself, and Guy Baer, got together and we established a 501c3 and set up New Jersey FOG in 2000 with the goal of getting OPRA passed. Now that happened in 2002, and the strategy that we used was not to follow the same strategy that had been used by the New Jersey Press Association, which basically fired off these nasty editorials about the state legislature not passing OPRA. Instead, what we did was we founded New Jersey FOG, which at the time was originally groups of groups. Like for example, the ACLU was a member, the League of Women Voters was a member, various citizen active organizations were members, so that when the time came to testify before the legislature about passing OPRA, it didn't seem like just a guy sitting in an editorial office was writing editorials, but rather a large number of groups supported passage of OPRA. And guess what? It got passed in 2002. I was there. I saw, what's his name, Governor DeFrancesco, sign it. That was on January 8th, 2002, and it was, I remember it was a really great day. The room was full of reporters. And when Donald DeFrancesco finished, made a little speech, and one of the first questions was, remember his term was ending just that day, and he did it on his last day. The question was, where are you going after this? Because you know, governors usually tell people where they are. And he says, well, I have to tell you, I don't have to tell you, because my term is over at noon, so goodbye. And he picks up his hat and he walks out. And that was the last we saw of him for that time. So FOG became a very potent organization, getting the Open Public Records passed, and has been working ever since on improving it. And the membership of the organization has kind of shifted more to citizen activists, like people perhaps like yourselves here today. So we're here tonight to talk to John Paff and ask any questions about either the Open Public Records Act or the Open Public Meetings Act. And also John will give you a little strategy that he uses sometimes for getting information from various levels of government. I think that's probably why most people are here. In this blue pouch, you should know what you have here. First of all, there's an outline of OPRA and OPMA. It tells you kind of the various areas that the law has to deal with.
That's not in there.
It's not in there? It's in mine.
But you're lucky.
Okay. You can look at mine when you're done, okay? And it also has a membership application for, it has that in there, right?
Oh,
for
yeah.
FOG, okay?
Yeah, free
Yes.
gift through membership.
A little note paper if you want to take notes. Okay. An article called How to Get Government Records Under OPRA, which is very good for beginners. It's very easy to be intimidated by local officials when you file an OPRA request. Oh, you did that wrong. That's no good. You're out of here. Goodbye. You know, so you've got to seek advice if you need it. There's a copy of the Open Public Records Act, and there's also a copy of the Open Public Meetings Act, which is a considerably older law. It's from the 70s and was passed long before any of us were involved in these kinds of organizations. So there's also a little booklet you can take with you on how to deal with OPRA as you need it, and a copy of the 2017 session of the legislature and who's a member. So it's a state law that requires certain things in order to be exercised, but in most municipalities, the records keepers will work with you and try to help you. We found most of them are pretty good. It's only when they don't want something to be made public that they're not. So that will pretty much tell us a little bit about OPRA and FOG. And now I'd like to introduce John Paff, who's going to make a little statement first.
Yeah, well, this I can probably start with giving you some news.
And then,
right up to the minute.
right, big important event today.
Actually, two.
Okay.
One of which you do not know of yet, because only I know. Okay, there are two. The big decision today was, in my case, John Paff versus the Township of Galloway. This case involved me asking for emails, but not the actual emails that were sent by the municipal clerk and the Galloway Township Police Chief. I didn't want the emails. I wanted a log of the emails. I wanted the township to print out a list that had sender, recipient, subject line, of and date of all the emails sent during a 2-week period. I didn't want the emails. The township said, you cannot have it. While that information is in our database, it would require us to create a new record, not provide you with an existing record. That is something that OPRA does not require. So you don't get it. So I sued.
Only records that exist.
Only records that exist. And now, that is true. What it means is that you can't ask your town, give me a list of all the people who contacted the township about this issue. Unless the township already has that list. They don't have to compile a list for you. But I wasn't asking for them to compile anything. I was asking for them essentially to run a query on their email database. And they could do it. And during discovery in the lawsuit, they admitted that the request that I made would take them 2 minutes to fulfill. But they decided on the principle that they were willing to stake Galloway taxpayer dollars to take this case to court. I won at trial court. The trial court held that this was a 2-minute job, it was easy for them to accommodate, and they should provide me with the records. The appellate division reversed in a published decision, which was horrible. They said that I am not entitled to this information because it would require the creation of a new record. The Supreme Court today reversed the appellate division and held that the information contained in the government database is a public record. The information is the public record. And all I'm asking for is to have that information formatted in a particular way, filtered in a query of a database. And that since the information is a public record, I am entitled to it. However, the information is subject to all the exemptions that OPRA would ordinarily provide for, such as attorney-client privilege, other types of privileges. If it meets one of those privileges and the custodian can prove it, I don't get it. And if it would require a substantial amount of manipulation or data programming in order for the information to be generated, I'd have to pay the cost of that. But right now, as of now, there is a right under OPRA to information contained in government databases. This goes way beyond emails. That was just the particular one I went for. But if and governments hold a lot of information in databases, expense information, maybe criminal citations are issued by a police department. They would maintain that in a database. So people now, hopefully what will happen is that Have people here seen Data Universe from Gannett Papers? Has Data Universe, and you're able to look up, you know, Piles Grove Township, Salem County, who works there, how much they make. That's a database. That is a good service. That helps a lot of people out. Hopefully nonprofits, citizens will start to mine these government databases, get this information, and put it in user-friendly format so people can use it for whatever purposes they intend. So that's a huge decision, and that's going to have it's in the Philly Inquirer, it will be in the Star Ledger at least, and I think the League of Municipalities has also come out. They were on the other side of the court case. There was amicus curiae on all sides. So it came out to be a pretty good decision. It was a serious win. So we're really happy about that. I'm really personally happy about that decision. It's going to be a huge impact and benefit for the open government community. The second thing that happened today is under the Open Public Meetings Act. The Open Public Meetings Act is troublesome because what happened was, unlike OPRA, if like right now, Galloway Township is going to have to pay my attorney, Walter Lors, he's got a big bill, big legal bill. Galloway taxpayers are paying for it. He's going to file a certification of attorney services. They're going to pay for this work at the trial division, the appellate division, the Supreme Court, and the remand back to trial division. It's going to be a huge bill on taxpayers because
It's not done yet?
It's not done yet. It's still been remanded back because Galloway wants to be able to assert that maybe some of the entries into my email log might not be, they might be privileged. So they have to determine that. They're not giving up. They're going to fight it down to the last taxpayer dollar they can get from their citizens. Don't know why they did that, but that's not why.
All those people in Galloway Township are so rich.
They probably aren't going to be happy about it when they figure out the bill. But anyway, the OPRA has an attorney fee shifting provision. So if you were denied the government record, if the city of Salem says you can't have that record, and the court says, or the Government Records Council says, yes, you are entitled to that record, the city of Salem has to pay your attorney's fees in addition to their own. So that gives you an even playing field. If you get denied a record, the way it really works is you go to the attorney says, I'll take that case, that's a strong case, I'm pretty sure I'm going to win. The attorney will say, you do not owe me anything. You don't have to worry about paying me. This is something that I get paid only if Salem pays me. If I lose the case, don't worry. That's the way these cases,
Most OPRA cases
yes,
are handled.
almost all of them are, because nobody can afford it. Nobody's going to pay $4,000 to get a public record. Most people, unless you're very wealthy, most people aren't going to do that. It's not financially reasonable for people to go out and say, I'm going to spend thousands of dollars to get a record. So that's the reason the attorney fee shifting provision is in there, is to benefit, to make it where the requester is on even playing field with the custodian, because otherwise the custodian has virtually unlimited amounts of taxpayer money to spend to defend the lawsuit, and people will be dissuaded from bringing it. And that's exactly the problem with the Open Public Meetings Act. The Open Public Meetings Act, there is no fee shifting provision. If you sue under the OPMA and you win, it doesn't matter how right you are, it doesn't matter how wrong the government entity was, you will not recover your attorney's fees from them. So you're in a position, if your government violates the OPMA, you are pretty much on your own. You've got to bring a lawsuit, either bring it pro se or bring it where you have to pay your own attorney with no chance of recovering it. So not surprisingly, there's lots and lots of violations for the OPMA, because the towns know and the school boards know that nobody can really, most people are not going to be in a position to sue them, so they have a tendency to be very aggressive in the way they comply with the act. The OPRA, they are very sensitive to the fact that if they improperly deny you a record, they're going to get sued and they're going to have to pay the freight. OPMA not the same. So, because of that, New Jersey FOG, because of that problem, the numerous examples of non-compliance with the Meetings Act, the New Jersey Foundation for Open Government has established an affirmative litigation committee, of which I chair. And we are using our resources to file targeted OPMA compliance lawsuits. One of the lawsuits we filed is against the Lawrence Township Mercer County Board of Education. And what the problem what we were going after is a common problem with non-compliance. It all involves the executive session, the closed session of the governing body. That's when they go into the back room, they kick everybody out. Now what they're supposed to do when they go into the closed session, there's two things they're supposed to do. First, they're supposed to pass a resolution or a motion that gives you a pretty good idea of what they're going to be talking about, topics they're going to talk. Just because you can't witness the closed session doesn't mean that you shouldn't know pretty much the topics of the conversation they're going to have. Are we going to talk about contract negotiations? Are we going to talk about pending litigation? Are we going to talk about personnel? If so, what contracts? Who are the parties of the contracts? They should tell you things like, we're going to go in and discuss a contract negotiation between the rock salt company and the township because we got to buy rock salt for next January. That's the kind of, they should be able to give you the details of what they're going to talk about, at least in that sense, but they want to be able to go into the negotiation itself. They want to be able to talk amongst themselves about how they're going to approach the contractor. That's why you go into executive session. But a lot of these towns, they just simply say, we're going to go into executive session to talk about contract negotiations, pending litigation, personnel matters, and matters falling under the attorney-client privilege. Every blessed executive session they hold all year long, they pass the identical resolution, give you nothing more, that they're going to talk about these 4 topics, generally without specifying how many of which ones, anything to do with the details of who the contractors, the adverse parties in litigation, none of that gets disclosed. That was one of the things we complained about against Lawrence Township Board of Education, is that's what they were doing. The second thing they're required to do, or there's more than just 2, but one other thing they're required to do is they're supposed to keep reasonably comprehensible minutes of what happened at the executive session. They're supposed to keep minutes. Now, you might not be able to see them right away, but they're going to keep minutes of that executive session, and you can send an OPRA request in for those executive session minutes, and you will ultimately get them, perhaps in redacted form. But what Lawrence was doing is they were providing executive session minutes that were very vague. They would say something like, a personnel matter was discussed. They were a little bit more, but they wouldn't really give you any substance. So anybody reading the meeting minutes would not really have a good idea about what was discussed, who was discussed, what the outcome was, anything. They purposefully made their executive session meeting minutes intentionally vague. They weren't redacted. They didn't need to be redacted because they didn't contain anything worth redacting. They were just essentially placeholder minutes that provided both the board and the public with nothing of substance or value.
They probably told the clerk or secretary, don't write that down.
They may have. Now, they weren't as bad as the ones, and I don't have them in front of me right now because I only got the phone call, Judge Jacobson's decision, while I was in the parking lot here, so I didn't come prepared with the exact details, and I don't want to mischaracterize that the minutes were as bad as some of the ones I've seen, notably the Spotswood Board of Education, Middlesex County, were the worst minutes I've ever seen, ever. But they were pretty bad, and Judge Jacobson ruled today, now I don't have this in writing yet, but as it was communicated to me by the attorney who was present, is that she is going to rule, she's going to provide an example of what is the reasonable amount of information to be maintained in an executive session resolution, and an example of what is considered reasonably comprehensible as far as executive session minutes go. No matter what it says, and hopefully they'll be detailed, probably won't be as detailed as I would like them to be, but having some example out there that people are supposed to live up to is better than what exists now, which is no example, and every municipality and every school board is essentially left to self-government as to what they are required to do to satisfy those provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. So hopefully when we get this, it'll be better than I'm anticipating, and we're going to put it on our website. You'll be able to download copies. They haven't been produced yet, where she is stating what she's going to do. And then we will put that on the website, and then people in this room will be able to go to their municipal councils, to their boards of education, and say, even though this is from a Superior Court judge in Mercer County, which is not binding on you, but this is what this judge, who's a well-respected judge in this state, said should be the example of what executive session minutes are supposed to look like and what executive session resolutions are supposed to look like. We as citizens would urge you to live up to at least this baseline standard and conform your minutes and your executive session resolutions to be the equivalent or greater than what those which Judge Jacobson has said. Now, of course, they can simply say, well, we're not going to do it because we don't believe it's binding on us, but it gives you some persuasive authority. Instead of just saying, we think your meeting minutes are insufficient, it's better to be able to say, a judge has said that these minutes, which are similar to yours, were insufficient and said that this should be what you do, what they're doing. We think you should do the same. It puts you in a better arguing position. And it also puts you in a better posture in case you were to file a lawsuit at some later time enforcing the provisions of the OPMA. That's essentially the 2 things that happened today. So it's been a pretty busy day in the open government community. That's the news portion. As far as the discussing the Open Public Meetings Act and the Open Public Records Act, I never know who I'm talking to. I don't want to bore you with basics that you don't need to know because you already know them. I don't want to talk about things that you're not interested in. I want to talk about things that you're interested in talking about. Okay, so I really welcome questions. If nobody asks me a question, I'll just go on. But I think some of the best conversations and some of the best material and some of the best learning for everybody, me included, is to have people ask me questions. What are you confronting in your town? Why are you here? What are you looking to learn? And I'm happy to answer those questions. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. If I wanted to go to, say, Lumberton Township and ask them what concrete contractor they use in the building of their municipal building, could I just do that in writing? Do I have to go there? How
You don't have to go. You don't have to go there. Okay, let's talk about the mechanics of an OPRA request. You do not have to use their form. They have an OPRA request form, and you can use their form. The purpose of the form is not to require you to use it. The purpose of the form is to help you in case you want something. Some people prefer the guidance of having a form that has blanks, you fill them all out, and then you know you've filled and given enough information. You can send an email to your municipal clerk.
Well, it's not my municipal.
You can send an email to. You can send any municipal clerk. You can send it anywhere from Cape May to Sussex County. You can choose a custodian, but this is Lumberton, and you would send a request to the Lumberton municipal clerk saying that you just put OPRA request in the subject line and say, please accept this as my request under the Public Records Act. I would like one. Now you're looking for the contractors who did the concrete on a particular project?
Well, I want to find out just how far Earl, what's his name, on the Pinelands Commission, the head of the Pinelands Commission, has influenced the use of, because he works for Silver Concrete.
Okay, so so you know the name of ABC Concrete Company, whatever. You already know the name of the person you're interested in.
Well, they have a lot of different divisions too.
Okay, you could probably say something like, for any concrete purchased by the Township of Lumberton for contracting services dealing with concrete, for the period of time, give it a date range, not forever, date range of January 1st of calendar year 2014. Please provide me with invoices submitted by said contractor. That would probably work. Sometimes you don't get what you want on the first try. Lots of times I issue an OPRA request, and then I find out that they come back with something, and then I have to issue another one. And always remember that OPRA is not a one-shot deal. You don't have to. Some people are almost paralyzed in inaction because they're afraid they're going to forget something in their OPRA request. And they call me up, they sweat me, they're on the phone, they're breathing like, what do I ask for? I always say, relax, submit the OPRA request. The worst that can happen is you don't get it. They come back with, well, you're not going to get it because you didn't do this. In which case, then you submit another OPRA request. Their turnaround time is 7 business days.
Do I say it's an OPRA request?
Sorry?
Yeah. Do I mention it's an OPRA request?
Yeah, it's OPRA. You can't just
Also mention common law.
Yeah, I'm going to get into common law. I remember that. I just want to get in just so you just put an OPRA request for these records. It has to know. You can't send the clerk a chatty letter, 3 pages long, and then 2/3 of the way down the 3rd page, by the way, under OPRA, I like this. They have to be able to look at it. What I do is I use a word processing document, and that's OPRA request in 72-point type across the front, across the top margin. And then I put under there my name, my contact information, and I say I want the records emailed to me at this address. I don't want paper. I want you to email it to me, and this is the description of the records that I want. Sometimes I'll even go to a background section. Like I try to give an idea of where I'm coming from. And that's good. You're supposed to be looking at the custodian as a cooperative person, a person who's cooperating with you to satisfy OPRA's mandate that government records get into the hands of people who want them.
So
not an adversary.
So do I tell them that I want to, I'm trying to investigate Sean Burlington?
You could. You could just say, I'm trying to find out whether him or his companies are selling concrete to Lumberton. That's what I'm trying to do. I don't know the names of all the companies. I know that he has these 2 companies or whatever. So I would like, number one, any contracts entered into in the last 3 years with company number one, Sean's company, and the other one is company number two. Any other companies that the township knows that he has an interest in, you could do that. And four is any other contracts for concrete, no matter who they're with, except for the ones covered by 1 through 3 above. And then you're going to get back a response. You might get a phone call from the clerk asking you what you're really looking for, and you talk to them. That's what you do. And then, but that's the way, because once you file the request, the burden is now on them. They got 7 business days to do something. Okay, now, so that's what I would do. And then if you don't get it the first time, if something comes up, you come back again. And if they might sometimes suggest why your first request is insufficient or why they can't respond to it, and then you come back and take another shot.
What are some typical reasons they say that it's not?
Usually they'll say something like, you don't describe a record that I can identify what it is.
Right, the important thing is they can only give records that already exist.
Right.
You can't say, I'd like to know the ratio of stone companies that deal with the township in regard to something or other. That record may not exist, so they can reject it right out of hand. So what you want to do is you want
have
to
to
say
reasonably specify the record you're looking for.
a record, right?
Now there might be ways that they can, you know, and then there's other ways of going about it. Let's say that, I mean, I have times where I know everybody in the town knows exactly what concrete company I'm talking about, but they go, I don't know, we don't really keep track of them, because they'll do that. You know, I mean, first of all, a lot of these clerks are really very good, they're very conscientious. Some of these clerks are actually very good and conscientious, but they're afraid for their job because somebody's behind them telling them, don't give anything out without running past you, don't give anything. And that happens. So you could ask for a major project that you know took a lot of concrete. You want to look for all the invoices related to that project, regardless of whether they're concrete construction or anything else. You want to do an in-person site visit to the clerk's office to look through every document in that file. There's ways that you can get in there. Push comes to shove, you're going to get what you want.
Be careful not to ask for paper copies because they'll charge you a per copy
Now,
charge.
I'm guessing that you can't do the same thing with like the gas companies.
No, gas companies are not public agencies.
Right.
Again, I just want to go, before we get, I'll get to the questions, this is a good way to segue into the common law right of access. Whenever I do an open record, I say I want the records under the Open Public Records Act, and I'm asserting my right under the common law right of access. Let's talk about that for a minute. There are 2 distinct ways that a non-litigant can get records in New Jersey. One is the Open Public Records Act. That is the statute. Title 47, that's the one that's in your packet. It says basically that every record the government has is a government record, unless it fits into one of these 30 exceptions. Okay? It's an on-off switch. If it fits into one of the exceptions, you don't get it. They say, you're not going to get that record because it's advisory, consultative, or deliberative. And it's subject to the attorney-client privilege. So you can challenge their characterization of the record, but if it's truly subject to the exception, you're not going to get the record. Common law right of access is different. The common law came to us from Great Britain. The British law, as it existed in the colonies of New Jersey and in Great Britain, as of July 4th, 1776, has become imprinted upon the state of New Jersey. Everything that was the law then, this is not statutory law, common law, it was the court decisions, things along those lines, everything that was there at that time is still enforceable today, unless it's been specifically abrogated by, or done away with, repealed by act of the legislature or a decision of the highest court of the state. So, the common law, unlike OPRA, also has a broad category of records that are government records. But there aren't any exceptions. There's a balancing test. The courts balance the requester's interest in the record against the government's interest in confidentiality. Each one of these balancing tests are unique. The court has to consider, there are 6 factors called the Boyden factors. They have to consider these factors, do a weighing, an exquisite weighing process, and if the right of the requester exceeds the confidentiality interest of the government, you get the record. If it doesn't, it gets denied. So there are cases, there are times when OPRA will consider a record exempt, but under a common law balancing test, you have a higher interest in getting it than the government has in keeping it secret. One example that comes to mind is Hainesport Township in this county, Burlington. I had heard that some of their elected officials, or all of their elected officials, were receiving health insurance that was underwritten by the taxpayers. And this was the Cadillac, this was the gold plan, the platinum plan, the $30,000 family and friends plan. It was a nice, everybody wants this health care. But they didn't want to talk about that. So I asked for a copy of, if you have a list of who's getting your health plan, they have to have a list of who's getting your health plan because they have to know who to pay for it. Give it to me. And I want this under the common law right of access because I think the Hainesport officials, the citizens, would be interested in knowing. And I don't really have any great personal interest in this information, but I do plan on blogging about it and directing local media attention to the answer, whatever you give me. And I'm pretty sure the people that are paying taxes of Hainesport would be happy to know who's collecting this stuff.
John, can you talk about the extent of the information you can ask for? Because there's some things that's public, some not.
I know, I'm getting it. So what happens is that they said you can't have it. I sued them because of Wyatt versus Mikeson versus Wyatt said that it's not subject to OPRA, but I said that I have a right under the common law right of access. The same court case says it is subject to disclosure under the common law right of access. Hainesport had to give me the information, and of course we did disclose that all their elected luminaries were collecting that health plan, and it got reported in the newspaper, and I think it caused quite a bit of controversy. I think the taxpayers were making pitchforks at the meetings because they didn't like the fact that these guys were getting this health care benefit. So there is a way that you can get the information. And it's not extend the information, it's really just a balancing test. There's no hard and fast rules in the common law right of access. It's just a balancing test. Is your right to the information greater than their need to keep it confidential? And the court makes that determination.
What are some reasons that you would balance it more on your side? I mean, for example, like if you were a newspaper reporter, or you had a blog or something.
A lot of times it had to do with public money being spent.
Right.
They really had no good reason to keep it confidential. Their reason, when it came right down to it, was we really just don't want the taxpayers to know how we're spending the money on ourselves. That's really what it came down to. And they were really upset. But some of the stuff is...
Sorry, I didn't
get and I don't have the Loigman factors in front of you. If you were to look up or Google the word Loigman, L-O-I-G-M-A-N, factors, and put under Supreme Court of New Jersey, you'll come up with Loigman. And there's 6 factors that the court is supposed to evaluate in making this common law balancing income. And then that's how. So when you file an OPRA request, you don't want to limit yourself just to OPRA. You want to, why not go for both bases? Say, I want the records under OPRA, and I want them also under the common law right of access. And you might even say, this is why I want them under the common law right of access. This is my reason for wanting these records. So if you deny me under the common law right of access, please do me the courtesy of articulating your reasons why the government's interest in confidentiality exceeds my interest in knowing. And that puts them on their back foot. Now they have to deal with that. So sometimes that's the way that you make a request. And I figured we had some other questions. I just wanted to get into that. So somebody over, yeah, Tom.
I have a question about, it's basically about bypassing OPMA. Is it for a town, can a town use the lawyer? Because what appears to be going on in my town is that the town lawyer calls all of the councilmen individually and discusses what's going to be discussed in the public meeting. And basically gets a feeling or tells them, I don't know what, either tells them how to vote or gets a consensus about what is going to be voted on, has a conversation with each individual, not as a group, so there's not a quorum, but as individually. But it definitely seems to bypass the Open Meetings Act because when it shows up for the public meeting, the decision has already been made. Or there's things that are being presented that everybody knows why it's being presented or what's being presented, and I feel that is a total bypass.
You're completely right. The meetings are supposed to be vibrant. They're supposed to be they're supposed to be raw. They're supposed to be where you're actually witnessing the actual, genuine, authentic policy making and deliberations of your public officials deciding what's happening. All too often, though, they're nothing but scripted dogs and pony shows. That everything has already been worked out, and you essentially get to witness a bunch of people on the front, on the dais, all voting yes. Actually, I went to one of those meetings just last night, exactly one of those meetings. Everybody voted yes, the whole thing was over with in 40 minutes. We pontificated, they pontificated about the Boy Scouts and about the veterans and about this, and they gave a fireman award, and everybody applauded and thanked them profusely for how wonderful this majority of this unnamed town body is. And that's what passes, or that's what masquerades itself as meetings. What they're doing is a disservice to the OPMA. They're not supposed to have, what you're talking about is a traveling or walking quorum, where one guy, Councilman A, in this case the attorney, goes to Councilman B and says, how would you vote on this? Then, see, they're not at a quorum in the same room together unless they announce it was a meeting. So they go and they have little subgroups that are all less than a quorum so they can all figure out. They have one person visit from one little subgroup to another until we're able to figure out. We got the votes for that. We've twisted the arms. So we'll put that one on the agenda. This other one here, we still got two councilmen who've got some, problem with it. We're going to keep that one off the agenda because we want everything to be unanimous. So what you end up with is this scripted type of a meeting that I was discussing, and that's not an open public meeting. That's just a punch in the taxpayers' eyes, all that is. But the problems are the proofs. You got two big problems. You got proofs. How are you going to prove that?
Well, the one, I don't know if this is a proof, but there was a vote, and they all voted unanimous in my town. And there was one time where we saw them not vote unanimous. And it was about, the strangest thing was about an anti-idling act. And the anti-idling act, they announced it, they went through, yes, 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 and the one guy says no. And and the mayor immediately goes, we all know why he's saying no, he has his reasons, let's just move on.
Okay.
And
well, what it is, see, the problem is, that's not proof. Is you would probably have to get somebody from the inside that would testify, but they're probably going to lie. I mean, I hate to call public officials liars, and I don't want to be dirty, but a lot of them, they've done a lot of riding on keeping the machine running in good working order. Okay, this is what some of these towns, some of them, and again, I hate to come off as being pejorative or harsh, but you have certain towns that have been from time out of mind controlled by one political party. Actually, just almost the same families of people have been running these towns for 40, 50, 60 years. You're not going to get one of those guys under oath to say that, the township attorney called me up and told me, and made sure he vetted my vote before the thing went on the agenda. You're not going to get that to happen. So the problem is that, yeah, what's happening here is wrong. You know it is, you feel it is, but I don't know what you're going to do about it. That's the first problem you got, is proving it. Second
I do have an ex-councilman that would testify.
Well, then maybe now you're getting someplace. Now you got somebody who's going to testify. Yeah, they do this all the time. I have reason to suspect they're doing it now.
Okay.
Yeah, the same people that I served with are still on the board, and yeah, they all we all talk. We have this little meeting at Joe's barn, and we all decide what's going to go on, and then we figure it all out, and we put together this script, and we put the strings on the puppets, and we do it. If you have that,
yeah.
Second item is now who's going to pay for this lawsuit? I have people call me up all the time, and I grow a little weary. They call me up out of breath. Breathless. I have discovered my school board engaged in a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act. And I'm like, and? And they'll tell me that, they'll come up with, this is what they did. And I'll say, you're right. Okay, John, what are you going to do with it? Well, I'm going to stop everything I'm doing and drop everything else in my life, and I'm going to devote myself with 100% fidelity to making sure I take that school board to task for what they did. No, it's not the way it works. See, what happens is the question I ask back is, are you willing to either pay an attorney to bring an OPMA enforcement lawsuit against this school board? Or are you willing to put in the time that it would take and the learning it would take to do it yourself? Because if you're not willing to do either of those things, I can tell you that in my opinion, the school board did indeed violate the Open Public Meetings Act. But I don't know what good that's going to do you, because they don't really care that you know, or I know, that they're violating the OPMA. They're playing a game like we played as children called King of the Mountain. We had this pile of snow, we had a big dirt pile, and the kid gets up on top, and the other kids run up that side of that mountain, they want to knock him down, and he's defending himself, trying to maintain his position. He doesn't care if he's right or he's wrong. He's up on the top of the mountain. You're the one who has to push them off the mountain. It has nothing to do with right or wrong. It has to do with power. You need the guy who can push them off the mountain, and that's the local superior court judge. He can do that. But you need to have the resources and the smarts to be able to access the superior court judge to get him to issue an order that'll do what you want it to do. Nothing to do with right or wrong. Has to do with
Who's going to pay for it?
Who's going to pay for it? So, unless you're willing to do that, your OPMA rights are pretty much illusory. If you are not willing or able to enforce the OPMA through filing a superior court action, you will probably continue to experience violations by the same government entity because you are wanting for a remedy. There are other ways that you can do it. You can, if you can prove, you can put a blog article up saying, here is why the X Board of Education is violating the law. We need people to read that, and maybe that'll embarrass or shame them. You could go to the county prosecutor's office and you could complain about them, that they know better, and that they're violating. But a lot of times the county prosecutor's office don't really care that much about
But they
OPMA.
can bring a suit.
They could bring a suit if there's nothing lawful, but sometimes
You don't have to pay for that.
no, I've had the county prosecutor on occasions read a letter, and he'll say, I think what you're doing is wrong. I'm not going to bring anything against you, but I think it's wrong, so why don't you stop it, essentially. And the county, and then when they get that letter from the prosecutor, they're kind of afraid, they start upping their game a little bit. I've seen that actually happen. So it isn't like you're not the only remedy for superior court action, but the most straightforward, the most straightforward remedy you have is a superior court action, and that's going to cost you money. So you either have to learn how to bring them yourself, and that's not rocket science. It's not like this is some thing that's out of the, this is something new. I mean, I've brought a civil action. It's not that big of a deal. You bring it out, you file a complaint. They did this. I wanted to stop, essentially, and you put $250 check on it. You send it into the county courthouse. They send it back with a docket number. You serve it on them. And then there's a court hearing, and you discuss it, and something, and the judge makes a ruling if you put the proofs in. So it's not something you can't do, but it's something that you have to learn how to do. It's a certain skill set. But if you're going to have OPMA problems, you're going to have to get acquainted with either hiring a lawyer, doing it yourself, or living with a violation. I wish I had great news for you, but I don't. Now, the other thing you can do is you can start lobbying your congressman, your state legislators to pass Senator Weinberg's OPMA reform bill, because one of the things that would do is it would insert an attorney fee shifting provision into the OPMA similar to that which exists in the OPRA now. If that bill gets passed, now we've essentially deputized all the attorneys to go out and file these things on behalf of aggrieved citizens and have the attorney's fees paid for by the violating public body. That'll be a game changer. But that would require you to actually call up, and do you have the bill number for, was it Senate 1041?
I think it's 1045, S1045.
And 1046, one of them's over once, and if anybody's really interested, just email me or Linda, and we can get you the actual bill. But one of the things that would be a nice thing to do would be to find out who your legislative representatives are in both in the Assembly and the Senate. Call them up, talk to their chief of staff, have the bill number there, and say, I am a citizen, I am so-and-so, I would like for the senator and or assembly person to support and co-sponsor these bills. I would like to know how the senator, assembly person feels about it. Please write me a letter at this address and let me know the position on this matter, because I'm going to take that into consideration when I go to the polls in November. That would be a real good thing to do. I would love everybody to do that. And get your friends and family to do it as well, because that's what's going to break this logjam. The attorney fee per shit, I don't care if you didn't change anything else in the OPMA. Everything stayed exactly the same, except that you had an attorney fee shifting provision that gave a successful plaintiff the attorney fees that would make all the difference in the world.
Jump in here and help me. There was a case a number of years ago at the Rutgers Board of Governors where they would have this, they also qualify under OPMA, where they would have this practice where they would meet and they would say, oh, we just came up with an idea that we have to discuss in closed session. So they would tell everybody, we'll be back when this happens. And like an hour would go by. Meanwhile, people would drift out of the meeting and they'd say, I'm not going to wait for this. And then they'd come back in and they'd tax them. And then they would do it again and say, we'll be back in 45 minutes, we promise. And they would come back and they by this time, no one's there except maybe one reporter. So finally, some Rutgers alumnus who had a lot of money, had these deep pockets, he brought them to court, and the court ruled that they can't do that. You can't close a meeting, open it, close a meeting, open it, in order to get people to leave.
Supreme Court reversed. Supreme Court took most of it away. The only thing that survived, that's McGovern versus Rutgers. The only thing that worthwhile that survived the Supreme Court's reversal was the fact that the resolutions that you pass when you go before the public body goes into closed session has to contain as much information about the topics that will be discussed in executive session that can be disclosed without underlying the reason why they're going to executive session in the first place, which is certainly worth it right there. But the problem is not everybody's a Mr. McGovern. Not everybody has thousands of dollars in their checking account waiting for an opportunity to spend it on OPMA cases. So it would behoove everyone, if all citizens be better off ultimately, if, in my opinion, if we had a provision in the OPMA that called for the attorney fees, at least in some circumstances, to be paid for the government whenever a plaintiff prevails in an OPMA case. So that's, I would suggest everybody call their legislative representatives and make that case. Were there any other questions? Yes, sir.
A simple one and then a broader one. The simple one is if you request 5 things, one of them cannot be fulfilled, 4 of them can. Is the 4 fulfilled and you're denied on the 1, or is the whole request
No, 4 fulfilled, denied on 1.
Okay.
If you ask for a copy of the meeting minutes for 4 different dates or 5 different dates, and they have 4 and they don't have the 5th one because they lost it, or it's not prepared yet, or whatever, you get the 4, and they cannot justify denying you any non-exempt records for the sake of one of the things that you requested does not exist.
Right. Okay, thanks. And the broader question is, I am pretty new at this, and I'd like to understand sort of the universe of public records that you can request. There's OPRA, ELEC, financial disclosures. How does OPRA and how does that fit into the larger picture of public records that you can request?
Okay, well, OPRA covers almost every government record. The definition of OPRA, of a government record under OPRA, is that pretty much every document that any public official has made or received in the course of his or its official public business. So that's about as broad of a definition you're going to get. So if a document is coming to the possession of an elected official in the course of his or her official duties, that record is now a government record under OPRA. You've got the first 2. It is a government record. Now the question turns on whether it's exempt from disclosure or not. In an ELEC record, most people, I guess you could OPRA a financial disclosure or what are they called, the R4 forms, whatever the R1 forms, where the candidate expenses, you probably could OPRA those from ELEC, the Election Law Enforcement Commission, but nobody does that because they're readily available on ELEC's website. So those are public records, no different than any other public record. It's just that you're getting them by way of going to a better way of retrieving them. Another example would be financial disclosure statements are all on the local finance board's website. So if you want to see every elected official, and a lot of the higher level appointed officials have to fill out a financial disclosure form that reveals the source of their income. So you could make an open request for those, but most people wouldn't because you can go online and you can just put in, I want Lumberton Township, and okay, I want the mayor, click and download the form, and you get it.
So actually, let me reframe the question then. Since OPRA is a more broad term, more broad than I expected, there's ELEC, you just said local financial board, I think you said.
Yeah.
So what are these other sort of major tools that are already available?
Okay, other ways that you can get government information that either dovetail with or overlap OPRA or separate and apart from OPRA. Is that, okay, let's go with that and we'll see where that leads us, okay? First off, certain agencies, notably the judiciary courts, are not subject to OPRA. The judiciary is just not subject to OPRA. They have their own set of rules that you would request records from a court under Rule 1:38. That's a judiciary records request. That's one thing. There are public databases of court cases. You could do a civil case check, and that's really an interesting thing to do if you're interested in your town, to go to the New Jersey Judiciary's website and go to the civil case system. It'll make you put in one of those little captcha codes, and then you can search. You can put Lumberton, Burlington under civil law. Click it, and all the cases in which Lumberton or your town or whatever party your mayor, your neighbor, whatever is a party to will be listed by docket number. And then what you can do is, if you learn that Lumberton is being sued because of a whistleblower case, and you have Smith versus Lumberton, docket number Burlington L-1234-17, you then can make an OPRA request to the clerk of Lumberton Township saying, give me a copy of the civil complaint filed in this case, and identify the case by parties and docket number. That's another thing you can do. I'm trying to think I'm trying to think of other things that you can ask for. I think that OPRA is generally, there are certain documents, like the local finance board with the financial disclosure statements, ELEC with election law enforcement, the campaign financing stuff. I can't think of any off the top of head where there is a database or there is a way of obtaining these documents apart from OPRA. But there's lots and lots of useful documents that you can obtain through OPRA that might not be readily available. Like, for instance, I just asked maybe 2 months ago, I learned that the cases that are filed with the Division on Civil Rights are public. So I asked for a roster of all the cases that were filed for the Department of Civil Rights. And they gave them to me. And I would find things like so-and-so versus Somerville Borough Board of Education, and docket number, whatever. I say, I wonder why this person is saying that Somerville Board of Education violated his or her rights. So then I file an OPRA request with the Somerville Board of Education saying, I understand that this case was filed against Somerville. Here's the name, here's the title of the case, here's the docket number. I would like to have the complaint or petition that was filed together with any answer or response that Somerville Board of Education made to that. So sometimes what I'm doing there is I'm getting a docket sheet, I'm getting a list of cases, and I'm looking through the hundreds of cases for ones where a party is a public agency. And it came out with an outrageous sexual abuse claim, which may or may not be true, but this is what the person said this person at Somerville Board of Education did. And actually I have reasonably now that I think he grossly overstated his case, but it provides information. So sometimes you need to know what you're looking for, and by looking at a court docket sheet or something like this sheet, you're able to figure out what documents to ask for. Now you might look at 1,000 cases and none of them really involve your town. Okay, so that might not be good for you, but it might involve your town. So that's sometimes, it's just knowing, the town doesn't even report on these things. You don't even know that it's occurring. You don't bring it up at public meetings. Another way,
and when they pay, they never announce it.
they usually don't. They'll usually do it in some sort of an obscure way, or they get the insurance carrier. And another place to go is your joint insurance fund. A joint insurance fund is just a group of municipalities got together, maybe 20 of them, and said, we're going to form this little insurance company. So if we get sued, we're all going to chip in, and we're going to pay off, essentially, it's more complicated than that, but we're going to all have a share. We're going to pay premiums into this fund, out of which we're going to pay claims. The joint insurance funds themselves are subject to the Public Records Act. So if you are let's say that you live in the township of Fairfield in Cumberland County, New Jersey, your joint insurance fund is a TRICO fund, Tri-County Joint Insurance Fund. They have an executive director who is the OPRA custodian, and these are professionals. So it's easier to get information out of them than it is out of town, because they're like very sharp people with these insurance funds. And you make a request to them, and they'll provide you with the records. I like that for every lawsuit in which the township of Fairfield or any of its officials or employees are named as a defendant that was filed from 2012 to current date. Please provide me with the most recently amended civil complaint or the original civil complaint if no amendments were filed. Number one. Number two, for each document responsive to number one above that has been settled or has been adjudicated, please provide me with the final document, either the settlement agreement or the judgment or the verdict upon that resolved the case. And that's going to get you all your lawsuits against the town. And how much. All the stuff the town's been trying so hard not to tell you, you're going to get it all in one OPRA request from the joint insurance fund. And then if you're like me, you'll go on your blog and you'll publish it all and make sure everybody knows about it. Guess what I do? But That's a way that you can get information. Another way I've gotten some incredible information is by getting the minutes of those two pension funds, the PERS and the PFRS, which are the police and fire and the regular public employee pension funds. They will try, usually it's a police officer who will be looking for accidental disability benefits. And they'll actually report, well, he was convicted in municipal court of doing this, and we feel that we feel that deprived the public of the services, so in other words, if the couple had not applied, it wouldn't be in the minutes, and you'd never even know that whatever happened in municipal would actually happen. But I've had a couple cases where I have found police officers, prison guards, and people who have been involved in scandalous behavior. And it was all done internally, and nobody knew about it. Nobody could know about it. Because unless you happen to know which municipal court or superior court and what docket to look for, you would never know. Where I've been able to determine it because he has applied or she has applied for disability benefits and was either granted or denied. And the minutes of the meetings will show that this occurred. So it's a little easier for me than it is for you, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't really care. When I find something like that, I don't care if the cop or the prison guard is from Lawrence Township in Cumberland County or from Alpine Borough in Bergen County. I blog them off because I look at it all from a statewide perspective. I'm looking at what is it that these guys don't want me to know? And how can I find it out and make sure everybody knows about it? That's what I do, okay? If you're into your little town, if you only care about what happens in Burlington Township, New Jersey, it's probably not going to do you a lot of good to go get the police, the PFRS minutes, because probably none of the cases are going to involve your township. So it's a little bit harder. So that's why I do what I do, is because somebody lives in all of these towns and somebody cares about these issues, and that's why that's what I try.
Unless you do it every so often.
Yeah, you can do it every so often and just check it. The vast majority of the stuff that you're going to find, because these are statewide systems, are not going to pertain to your town. They're going to pertain to somebody else's town. Yes?
Hi, I have a question. I filed an OPRA request in Little Lake Harbor, and I got an email back from the councilwoman who
was the target.
Who was the target of my OPRA request, saying to the township clerk, I sat down with our IT guy, I don't see any of those emails.
Oh, you asked for emails. What kind of a email address does this councilwoman have? Like a Gmail or like a Yahoo or like a...
Well, they have township emails.
Yeah, it was the township.
The township clerk should have never ever even contacted that council person and let them know that you were even asking for that request. In my view, that was unprofessional on the part of the clerk. The clerk didn't have to. I'm going to get into emails. I'm glad you raised that point. This email thing is an issue. Okay? That clerk should have been able to go to the township server without having to notify the person whose emails were sought, and be able to search for the emails that fit the definition of your inquiry, and be able to provide those emails to you without that council person's involvement. That's what should have happened. I don't understand. So what did the councilwoman say? What was her?
It was like one line. Dear Diana, I sat down with our IT guy, whatever his name was.
She should have had no involvement.
That's my question.
Yeah, and I think I probably would write them back and say, I want an OPRA request. I want you to fulfill the OPRA request I want to know the extent of your search. You're telling me that you asked for the emails from the councilwoman, the clerk of Little Egg Harbor goes to the councilwoman and says, go talk to the IT guy and come up with a list of the emails and meet with some. I don't think that's right. Okay, what should have happened there is the clerk should have been able to access the IT person themselves. Now let's get into another thing with emails, these Yahoo accounts, these Gmail accounts, these municipal officials.
What does it do then?
I don't know. I think that what I would do is I would raise an issue. I would say, I want to make the same OPRA request again. I want these records. I want the emails that fit. I'm going to give them sender or recipient, date range, and subject matter. I want the emails that fit that description. And I want you to do it. I want you to describe for me the parameters of your search. Who did you go to get this? That's just almost flooring me. I can't believe they would have done that. So I think
I've
that
been dying all night to actually have a
Yeah.
sitting on the edge of my chair.
I don't think that doesn't make any sense to me. And I think that the remedy is they come up with a denial. Do you happen to know that emails do in fact exist? I mean,
Actually, we kind of didn't know emails existed, and we did eventually get a list of emails.
oh, you got a list.
It was 100 pages that we had to go pick up from the township building, because the file was too big.
Yeah, so the excuse should be.
You get a 100-page document, which is a log of all the emails this councilwoman.
Just print it out.
Oh, the emails themselves or a list of the emails?
The emails themselves,
Okay.
wasn't to this one. They were printed out, there was multiple copies, blank pages and redacted pages. So it was supposed to be like 100 pages and we only got like 60.
Did they charge you?
They charged
Nickel
us
page.
a page for blank sheets, double
Okay.
copies.
That could be
They
because
didn't tell us that, aren't they supposed to tell you when they remove a page?
when they redact the pages, now, were the sheets blank because the information upon the sheets are redacted?
I think some of the sheets were blank unintentionally.
Okay,
or
let's
intentionally
break
just to
this
make
down.
it look
Okay, let's get
pretty.
into redaction. If they're going to redact, that means you put the black line through it because you can't see this, you're not allowed to see this, or we're going to suppress an entire page. They're supposed to use a visual indicator. They're not supposed to use white space, they're supposed to use black space. So you can tell what has been redacted.
Right.
If you get a blank piece of paper, you don't know whether they just happen to insert a blank piece of paper in, or if there has been something written on that piece of paper that has been redacted. Now the GRC, if you go to their little helpful hints on their website, the Government Records Council, they will say there should be a visual indicator. So first thing I would do is go back to I would ask for another copy of any sheets that were redacted. Not all the sheets, but any ones that contain any redactions. Like, in response to your April 14, 2017 response to my open request was filed on April 7, 2017, you provided me with 90 pages of documents, of which several were blank and several retained redactions. But the redactions were not provided in a visually obvious way, so I'm not really sure what was redacted and what was not. So I would like for you to send me those pages again that contain redactions. This time email it to me or fax it to me or email it to me. Don't make me come down and take a look because I don't want to do that. And this time have a visually obvious redaction. Did they explain to you why the information was redacted? Oh, they have to do that too. You can't just redact information.
We didn't get anything, and anything at all, any explanation.
No, they have to give you an explanation. Now, if they have something like a paper that says name, for the name, social security number, black line, they don't need to explain that to you, because you know it's a social security number and that's the reason to deduct it. But if they just take an email and they knock out a whole paragraph or black it out, they have to give you a specific reason. They have to give you, under a case, one of my cases, Paff versus the Department of Labor, they have to provide you with enough information without revealing the exact what was redacted. They have to give you enough information that you are able to judge for yourself whether or not the redaction is reasonable. And they have to say something like, you can't have that because it involves a personnel matter where discipline was visited upon a specific, government employee for having violated township policy. Now you know why you can't have it. And you can challenge that still, but they just can't black it out and say, we're not telling you why it's redacted. They have to give you a reason so that you're able to say, should I sue these guys? Well, when am I going to win or am I going to lose? You see, I don't know if I'm going to win or I'm going to lose because I don't know what it is that they actually redacted. Now, I've won cases where they wouldn't tell me why they redacted the information. They would simply say, we're not telling you why you can't have this, you just can't. And I've sued them and found out that they were right. That I really wasn't allowed to have the information, but I still got paid my attorney's fees because they didn't give me enough information to allow me to properly evaluate whether or not I should have sued them in the first place. You see? Okay? So what you need to do is go back to them and say, number one, I want visual indications that everything was redacted on pages 2, 7, 9, 14, whatever the heck you gave me, I want to know. And for each one of those redactions, each element that was redacted from any of those things, I want a reason why it was redacted that conforms to the standards of John Paff versus Department of Labor. Please provide same within 7 in the form of a Vaughn index or a privilege index. It actually says redaction number 1. It's this and this is why. And that, now you're going to start getting someplace. Now I don't understand the one sentence email from the same councilwoman who now you know has sent and received all these emails. Now she's saying there aren't no emails, or what's she
I
saying?
think it was two different instances, right?
What do you say?
It was two different instances, but with the one with the 100 sheets,
Right.
the reason why we had to go down there and pick it up is because the file was too large.
I can see that.
Can't you
But then from Ocean County Board of Elections, I got a, I did an OPRA request, we did an OPRA request, and we got 519 pages via email.
Yeah, well, I think
Did your
you
OPRA
would make it
specifically ask
Via
to
email,
email
always,
that?
always.
So
You
they
could
really
make
have an
it
obligation to
to
provide
provide-
you with an email record.
So here's what you would have, what would have happened there is they would have told me, you gotta come down and pick them up. I would have said, nah. So email them to me. And they said, we can't. And then I would have made a decision. I've either gone down there and bit the bullet and paid them and got the records because I don't feel like dealing with that, or I would have filed an action against them because they could have provided it to me in email, but they decided not to make it that. But I think that ship is pretty much already sailed because you already went down and paid for it. You could probably still say that, but I would remember whenever you file, I look at every one of these things as being a potential lawsuit. So when I would have gotten there, I would have asked them to articulate exactly why I'm getting 519 pages from Ocean County and I can't get 100 pages of you. Is it you have a lousy scanner? You don't have a scanner? You don't know how to use your scanner? Why is it that and I had a case where I'm entitled to have an email to me. I can't remember the name of the case, but the GRC decided a long time ago, and this is going back into probably 2007 I filed a case, and I said I wanted the documents emailed to me. And they said, we don't have a scanner. I said, tough, I don't care, I still want them emailed to me. I don't want to have to pay for the paper and the mailing and the postage and all that. And the GRC held that, he asked for the documents to be emailed. If you don't have a scanner, go out and find somebody who does. Go to a company that does, go to Joe's Friendly Scanning Service, have them come in, send Paff a bill saying it's going to cost you $75 for the visit to have them scanned, and say, do you want to pay the $75 that it's going to cost? Because you have to provide them the medium in which he requested, which is scanned emails. So you could make that argument. If you really need it, I could probably dig up that GRC case.
Was that Barrett Borough?
No, it wasn't Raritan Borough. It was someplace up. It was like
And they had a
High
case
Bridge.
where the commissioner
Yeah.
for election for the OPRA Commission said, just because you have a Barney Rubble system doesn't mean that you
Now, there may have been some, that wasn't my particular. There's probably more than one case like that, but you can say the GRC has held that. And then the GRC,
They also took the 7 days and
right.
requested another extension.
They do
And
that.
then, I think it was just a big giant game they were playing.
Well,
Probably.
you
Yeah.
don't have to grant them the extension.
Well, you almost do. The extension thing has gotten, Division of State Police is notorious. I have Keene University is notorious. I've had it where I'll send in an OPRA request in December. Every 7 days they grant themselves another 7 days. Every 7 days I get a boilerplate email saying, we're being delayed. We'll have it to you on this day. 7 business days, 7. They just keep counting it, and this will add up to months. I'll get out there 100 days. They keep granting themselves multiple extensions. That's a problem we're currently grappling with. But in your particular case, you would have to, I guess, go back to them and ask them for a redo on that, giving you the visual redactions and giving you reasons for the redactions. And as far as the other one goes, next time they do that to you, insist upon the documents being scanned. And if you get to a point where they're saying that you're not entitled to it, email me and I'll send you a link to the GRC case where they said they had to do that.
Okay, thank you.
As far as why the councilwoman said, I don't know, that doesn't make any sense. I'm not sure I understand why they did what they did. But I do want to get into emails. I've known government agencies that essentially the elected officials have 2 emails, an official and an unofficial email. They'll say to you, now okay, so send me, I need you to email me this, but don't send it to my borough address, send it to my Gmail address. Because I don't want anybody to get this through OPRA. That's wrong. See, First off, in Donald Myers versus Borough of Paramus, which is a GOC case, the Government Records Council held that emails are public records. The question of whether an email is a public record that is available under OPRA turns on the content of the email itself, not on whether or not it's sent to or from a municipal email address versus a Yahoo or a Gmail thing. It doesn't matter. If the mayor sends a letter to another council person saying something about the meeting tonight that has to do with the business, and he sends it from his Gmail account, public record. Problem is that you don't have any way of knowing what these guys do. So you don't know that he sent it to these, so what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to go, and then what they'll do is they'll say, I don't want to have any emails that the mayor sent out in the last month, but which he didn't send from his municipal thing, he sent from some private thing. Now, in order to fulfill that request, they're going to have to go to the mayor and say, you need to search your Gmail account and tell me any, and they're going to come back and say, there aren't any such records exist. So I would go to towns and I would say, I want to know, so I would go to these towns, like Greenwich Township in Cumberland County was one of them. Then you'll find it. When you look at the list of municipal officials on your website, and you'll see they all have, one will have a Yahoo account, one will have a Comcast.net account, and they're actually inviting the public to correspond with them at these accounts. And I will make an issue. I will go to the town and I will say, how in the world are you doing that? How are you handling OPRA requests when you're relying upon the mayor to sort through his own emails and tell you which ones are responsive to my OPRA request or any citizen's OPRA request, and he might have a reason why he doesn't want me to know. You can't do this. And I had one, I'm not going to mention the town, they got snippy with me. They said, oh, sure we can. So I said, okay. You guys, I know your mayor, former mayor, resigned in mid-2014. This is back in like late 2015. I want every email he sent or received between March of 2014 and the end of his term that had to do with this subject. We can't provide you with that. He moved out of town. He won't talk to us anymore. He hates us. Not my problem. And it proves my point exactly. You need to have a method upon which you can guarantee that you can get all the emails, because you can't ever rely upon the person providing you with those emails, because that person might die. That person might resign. That person might move to Cambodia. You don't know what's going to happen. So,
or be biased.
Or be biased. And you have to, and that's not just me saying that. That's the New Jersey State Records Council in Circular Letter 3 said that you as a municipal governing body have to have a method of ensuring that emails are preserved in accordance with the Destruction of Public Records Act. You can't just allow these records to be destroyed. You have to retain them in some way that has integrity. So you can actually, I believe you could force them through a lawsuit to provide. Now I went to a town, I went to Fairfield Township in Cumberland County, and they had the same thing. They already had their own Yahoo address. I got them to design a simple system. The administrator of the town has a Yahoo address, because they don't have really, they're better now, they have a much better website. But they have said, form your own Fairfield Township at yahoo.com. The administrator's got the passwords of that account. Pass a policy that says that every business, every official email has to be copied to that account. In my mind, that would satisfy the requirements of the circular letter.
I had something similar with the, so per our Berkeley Heights Sunshine Act, it was once mentioned that we didn't want to allow the texting to happen during the public meetings. So during, they were actually discussing a $28 million bond at the time, and I see the councilwoman on her cell phone doing stuff while this is being discussed. So at the end of which it kind of annoyed me a little bit, and at the end, during the public hearing, I asked, are those texts that are being sent operable? And the lawyer actually replied back, yes, they are Oprah.
Yeah, they are, but if they're retainable, who
Well,
retains?
this is the thing, is that I went to, I Oprah'd, any text sent, and they basically.
Sorry, those records are gone, we don't have to retain
There's
those.
no- Yeah, there's none, but.
NJFOG is in, we went to the State Records Council and said, you created this nice circular letter about emails, what about texts? We've shown that texts are, in a lot of ways, preferred method of communication between public officials.
Well, I have a question, was that last?
No, that's right.
So my question is I brought up the Berkeley Heights Sunshine Act during a council meeting, and the mayor stood up in grandstand. He's a trial lawyer, so anytime he would ask a question, you basically get cross-reference, examined. Basically, he went up there and says, it's preposterous that you want to make this rule, because what stops Councilman A walking over and whispering in Councilman B's ear? If they can do that, what's the difference if they send each other a text rather than walk over to them and whisper?
Well, they shouldn't do either.
Well, this is,
That's like saying,
that was my
we
question.
shouldn't have a law against shoplifting, because anybody could walk into a store and pick something up and walk
He
away.
basically said it's totally legal to whisper to.
Well, actually, I don't know if I really agree with that. I mean,
And why?
an open public meeting, the point of an open public meeting is to allow people to observe all the formulations of policies and deliberations and all that. So I say that what we did is we had these public meetings, they whispered everything in their neighbor's ear, and you're sitting there in the audience and watching all this whispering. Do you think that would pass muster? I think a Superior Court judge might have a problem with that, so I'm not so sure.
In fact, I posted that video on the Berkeley Heights Sunshine Act, and Senator Weinberg actually came on.
Let's talk about the Berkeley Heights Sunshine Act. Let's talk about it. He's the first person to ever do this that I've ever actually. A lot of people tell me they're going to do all these things, and we really agree with everything you're doing, John. And every NJFOG is, what can we do to help? I got an idea. You live in a Faulkner town. You ready to know what a Faulkner town is? A Faulkner form of government, okay? Under a Faulkner form of government, about half of them are either a Walsh or a Faulkner form of government. Like, that's if you have a township council as opposed to a township committee. It's an optional municipal charter act of 1950 where the citizens could get together and adopt for one of these modern forms of government. Okay, now, one thing in common with all these Faulkner forms of government is they have binding initiative referendum. So, citizens can put together a petition to enact a piece of legislation. We would like to have a repeal of our cat licensing ordinance. Just for example, we want to repeal ordinance that deals with cat licensing. Okay, and we have all these places for people to sign. They agree that this should be done. And you have to get votes equal to the number of ballots cast, 10% of the number of ballots cast in the last General Assembly election. So in some towns that number is quite low. What's your number?
239.
239 signatures. Not that many signatures, okay? And Berkeley Heights is a pretty big town. So you get he gets 239 signatures, valid signatures on everybody saying we want to repeal the cat licensing ordinance. The ordinance that is listed on the resolution gets read as a second reading of the ordinance before the Township Council. The Township Council is given an opportunity to pass it or to not pass it. If they don't pass it, it goes on the ballot for the people to vote on. He's not talking about a cat licensing ordinance. What he's talking about is an ordinance to the Burlington Heights Sunshine Act that would impose via ordinance many of the things that we're talking about tonight, these salutary benefits of having executive session resolutions that are complete and candid and detailed, executive session minutes that are comprehensive and that are available within a certain period of time. It's essentially it's a wish list of all the Open Public Meetings Act things that we would like put into a municipal ordinance. And he's putting it on the ballot through a collection of signatures so people have an opportunity to vote on it. I would venture a guess, we've never done this before, but I venture a guess that most people, normal people who vote, and just normal citizens, would think that having more transparent government is a good idea, and would be likely to vote yes. I would also venture a guess that the kind of town that you would have to go to these lengths to get transparency the people that populate the elected positions of that town probably would think it's a terrible idea. And I think you could probably attest to them being almost comically opposed. I mean, they're coming up with all kinds of crazy reasons why you have to be insane to want this and how it's going to bring Western civilization to its knees if we actually require them to keep decent meeting minutes of their executive sessions, which is essentially what it's going to do. So anyone who is interested in that should talk to Tom. You can get a copy. If you wanted to replicate that act by taking the Word file and putting, instead of Berkeley Heights, putting your town's name in there,
This is
I'm
Tom.
sure you'd be happy to share that with you.
Tom, is that you?
That's
Yes,
it,
ma'am.
right there.
Yes.
So,
This is already passed?
No,
no.
no, I have almost, I think I have 210 signatures.
And he needs to get enough verifiable
Yeah.
signatures of people who are actually valid, registered voters. And once he turns that into the clerk, she certifies those signatures. And I'm sure there's going to be issues. We're going to challenge this one and that one. But as long as you get through that hoop, you'll eventually get to the point where it'll be on the ballot. You don't want to put 15% because that would require a special election, giving them an opportunity to say how you're wasting taxpayers' money by having a special election. You get between 10% but less than 15% of the votes cast, a number equals
Yeah, but
10%
you have
of that.
to be careful because the clerk often throws out a number of.
Well, did you
You
get
get 10
10
days, I think, 10 days.
There's a whole statute entitled 40A, I think it is, the Faulkner Act, that goes into the details of exactly how this is done. But this is something that you could do. Anybody in this room could probably, in some of these
If you're a
towns,
Faulkner Act town.
or you don't even have to do it in your own town.
Right.
You can do it in the Faulkner town next door. But there's nothing that says the person that gathers the signatures has to be a resident of town, which is the subject of it. However, you do have to have a committee of 5 petitioners who have to be registered voters. And you have to make sure they're on your side because they can vote to withdraw the petition from consideration. And I have seen in some towns, not your town, in a town, where these people were put up against, literally against the wall, by, not literally, figuratively against the wall by the public officials who said, we know your mother has a business in town, so we got some code enforcement people. That's the kind of games they'll play. So you have to make sure that you have people who are not able to be intimidated because some of these guys can't do it.
But they also have a chance, and just to back up 1 second, the first step we took, or I took, was was to bring it to the town council.
Yep.
And I said, here it goes, this is what I'd like this to be added to.
What do you think, guys?
Yeah, I'd like this to be added to the agenda, let's discuss it. 2 weeks went back, I think 4 weeks might have went by, and nothing ever got done. So I asked about it, and they said, oh, we didn't even, read it, so we don't know what we're talking about. The next one, they read it, came up with some excuses why they go go above and beyond, and they still never even read it, or discussed
They're
it.
just burning the clock.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? What's the enforcement mechanism in that? I mean, if it was a state law, you'd have a state agency, but who would enforce that? It's an
Taxpayers.
ordinance.
Yeah, the taxpayers, basically.
Taxpayers have to bring a suit just like they do now.
Oh, okay. So
But the thing is,
there's no like executive director or.
No.
There was a debate at one point whether or not to add the
Attorney fee shifting.
the attorney fee shifting to it. We decided not against it because it would give them ammunition to
Say that it was just a big money-making scheme. that
Yeah,
or rich
so
some
we
cottage
left
industry
it out,
oil.
but you could, if you felt that you had control of the constituency, you can
Yeah,
probably.
you could say
You
that
could
you put
put
an
that
attorney
in
fee
as
shifting
well.
provision where anybody that sues under this act to enforce this provision and wins gets their attorney's fees paid for by the town. Might be a tough sell to the voters because that might scare people.
Yeah.
But that's a strategical matter. But I'm just saying, Faulkner Walsh forms of government, you can do this.
It's
Nothing
a
stops you.
terrific idea because it raises public consciousness that this legislation is necessary.
Even if you lose.
Yeah,
Even if
you lose.
people vote against it, people are
Yeah.
thinking about open government. How often does that happen?
Get as much publicity out of it as you can.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
This is a viewer question, actually. Number one, I don't understand it. Number two, I asked him to clarify because I didn't understand it. And number two is Pennsylvania, so maybe you don't know the answer. And the question is, I'm from Pennsylvania. I have been told I must put my request on the official standard form to be honored. Is that?
I'm kind of state specific, hate to be parochial, but I don't have the wherewithal to understand all the laws all around the country. But I do know that if you go to the NJFOG site, which is the New Jersey, the National Freedom of Information Coalition, they will have, they will direct you to the state affiliate who handles records and meetings act issues similar. Our analog, the type of organization NJFOG is the one that's in Pennsylvania. They should be able to give you contact information. Every question would be properly directed to them.
Say the name of that organization again?
NFOIC, it's NFOIC, it's the
National
Freedom of Information
Coalition.
Yeah, National Freedom of Information Coalition. So if you look that up and Google that, and you should be able to find the Pennsylvania Association or associations that handle Open Records and Open Meetings Act in that state. And that goes for any state.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Tom from Hainesport. And it's very unfortunate that your committee, your administrator, back in 14, we had administrator clerk. Now, there must be a qualified clerk.
He wasn't qualified?
I mean, you must be a certified clerk. You just don't become a clerk.
An RMC.
Right. And so they keep the record. So when you would put in an OPRA a request, you'd get a paper back that would say, no paper exists.
Well,
nothing exists. And we went along with this, and we got with you about the benefits and stuff, because we kept asking about them, and then finally talking with you and coming up to see you in North Jersey, you filed that lawsuit. Well, once you did that, we found out when we put in an OPRA, we would get a little more information than we ever did before.
let me tell you something about,
And then we got a new administrator clerk, and we filed the same OPRAs, and now we've got answers.
Okay.
And it was tough because for so long we weren't getting them. And then we found out at that time that the last guy wasn't giving us anything.
Okay, so let me say, I know sometimes that government agencies claim that no records exist when they don't know darn well that they do exist. But a municipal clerk is a professional. A municipal clerk is taking a heck of a risk by saying that the document doesn't exist. Because I tell you, if I suspect that, I will ask for a record that I know that they don't want me to have, but I already know it exists. I will ask them to come, and I'm waiting for them to say that record doesn't exist, you can't have it because it doesn't exist. Because you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go after them for a knowing and willful violation of the OPRA. Have them assessed a civil penalty of $1,000 that they got to pay out of their pocket, and see how they like them apples. Okay?
It's not so much the amount of money, it's the fact that they're shamed publicly as being a bad clerk.
So put them on notice.
The clerk is retired and moved to Florida.
Well then, but still.
But the clerk that we had after that gave us all the information we requested.
Yeah.
Well, that's because the clerk
so
that was.
he was replaced at the end of his 3 years.
Okay, well they can't have that, right?
I mean, they can do anything they want.
They can, but you have to be
But
diligent.
this year, John, at the end of this year, there'll be no benefits for 2 people. At the end of next year, the last person goes off of benefits, there'll be no more benefits in Hainesport.
Well, good.
It took us 10 years, I think.
And again, I don't really have an opinion on whether or not it's good or bad to have benefits for elected officials. I really don't. I just don't, where I draw the line personally is that I just think that the public ought to be candid, it ought to be known to the public. The taxpayers have an absolute right to know whether or not they're getting the benefits. The question of whether maybe the taxpayers want their elected officials to have these capital plans. I don't know, that's up to you guys.
These 3 individuals voted to stop benefits.
Good.
For lifetime, so that one person had to get off the committee or he would lose his lifetime benefits, even though he'd been there 25 years. And I told him he should have fought it, but he just...
You got a 5-man council, township committee. Let's just talk about that for a minute. This is a little bit off the typical OPRA. We talk about Faulkner. For those towns who have a township committee and borough council, so a lot of them are not Faulkner, meaning you don't have any rights to, your initiating a referendum or any other benefits that Faulkner provides. But you can get to be a Faulkner form of government. Now, one thing that happens in a lot of towns is certain towns, big towns, the township committee was essentially designed for and agricultural, some of these old towns, you know, that just basically the 5 most popular farmers in town or merchants in town would become the township committeemen. Among themselves, they elect a mayor that has no additional powers other than a regular, just more of a ceremonial position. And they preside over the township and take care of business. They're all elected at large, meaning there's no ward system, everybody in town votes for everybody. But these towns grow, and they become more nuanced and more complicated. You get different demographics, you get localities within your township. Like in my township of Franklin, which is Fulton, where I used to live, you have a Middle Bush section, you have a Somerset section, you have a Gracestown section, and these are actually distinct. You know what part of town you're in by the way everything's set up. And a lot of times what you'll find is in these towns that have, and I'm speaking very generally here, that they have these township forms of government, these township committee forms of government, but they've outgrown, they're more modern than your old agricultural townships. You'll have it where you have diverse population groups, but all of the 5 at-large members, or the 3 or the 5 or the 7, all get elected, they all live in the same neighborhood, and they all sort of look alike. Okay? Okay? So what happens is that I would argue that that might not be the best way to represent the citizens of a diverse community is through this type of an at-large system. So Faulkner provides for ward systems where you can divide the town up into subsections called wards, and you might have 4 members of your township council get elected from each one from a particular ward, and 3 of them get elected at large. Now that makes it a little better, I think, for people, because first off, these people have to live in the ward that they represent, each elected official, and it allows for an upstart, a non-connected person. Now, if they want to run for a ward, they don't have to walk around this entire township of 40,000 people and knock on all these doors. They can restrict their activity just to the ward they live in. It also sort of dilutes the power of the power structure, because you have to, at the very least, they have to convince the person that lives in the ward to go along with the majority policy. And what happens, I think you end up with better government, just by virtue of having a Faulkner form of government. I think that by and large, there might be exceptions, you're going to end up with a more representative democracy than you would have had. So I believe that you are probably on the non-dominant political party in your township. And I think, and I talk to a lot of people, because first off, when somebody's talking to me, or they're here to me, they're usually not in the people that are running things. They're usually the people that are on the outside, because that's just the way it works, okay? Otherwise, they don't have to talk to me or come to these meetings. That one thing you might want to consider doing, instead of just running candidate after candidate in these elections and running these at-large candidacies, would be to start a petition to put in a Faulkner form of government in your town, either through the adoption of a charter study commission or through a direct petition that says, we want a small municipality form, we want a mayor council A, we want a council manager plan, and put it right on the ballot. You get the signatures, you start going around, you collect your signatures. Why I like collecting signatures, I like having that as something to do, because you get where people want to help you, and you want to say, and you're going to give them a job. Well, what can I do to help you defeat the evil empire against you, or whatever, right? Well, run for office for us. Well, I'm not willing to do that. Collecting signatures is something anybody can do. Go down to ward, wherever, election district, go door to door and see if you can get me 25 signatures on this petition. So it gets people involved. You start collecting these signatures. It starts getting the word out. It alarms the people who are in power, because they realize that if this town government changes, their gravy train is over. They're going to have to deal with a whole different world, and they don't want that. They're going to try to outspend you 10 to 1 to keep this thing down. So they're using their financial resources, their donations, to keep your little upstart petition down, knuckling under where it's supposed to be in their minds, okay? It's a win-win all around. So I always encourage people to look at changing your form of government instead of just running broadside attacks against it, because a lot of these towns, it's like, I see them do it for 20 years. It could be the Republicans and Democrats, it don't matter. One of them's got a lock on it. If it's Union County, the Democrats got it. If it's Monmouth County, the Republicans got it. Or Sussex County, it's just the way it is. They run these broadside attacks, running the candidates, sending them out there, and they always lose, always. Maybe think differently and start learning about the Optional Municipal Charter Act, the Faulkner Act, and try to pull the rug out from under these guys by changing the form of government. Most people, if you took a map of Hainesport, I don't know, and you were to put pins in that map where all of your guys live, do they all live in the same neighborhood? Maybe not. Think about it. Just think about what impact that has. The same people been in there, not facing any serious competition for a number of years. Maybe a ward-based system is what you're supposed to have. Just saying to the people who are watching on the pod or the live stream or whatever, that if you find yourself failing to get political traction in your town, maybe you might want to think about that. That's all.
What I was reading about Faulkner, is the optional municipal charter act. There's also an optional county.
Yeah.
Now, is that as easy? Can something be changed?
That's something, I'm not conversant with that, but I do know there's such a thing, and my suspicion is, yes, it's the same kind of a thing.
Yeah, I was
You get a county
tempted-
executive.
I was tempted
To have a
to-
county executive.
Yeah, you get a county executive, you get a different form of
Could you
county.
do county
Instead of
by county?
freeholders, you have freeholders, but they basically.
No, but can I put an initiative for a county?
I'm sure if you read the optional municipal or the optional county
I
charter
believe
act,
you can do it in any county.
there will be a procedure by which you would follow in the course of the
Yeah.
statute. Unfortunately, I just don't know what that is. I think Mercer, I know they did it. I think several
Essex
towns, Essex did it.
And Mercer, yeah.
I know Union is, I know Union is.
So that's what you'd have to, that would be something I should educate myself.
If the chief executive is the county executive instead
Then
of
you
a
have-
freeholder director, then they've done it.
They've done it. What exactly it does for you, I'm afraid I don't know, but I'm sure it should be something I should know, but I don't.
Well, it's like the township manager form of
Yes.
government under the Faulkner Act. In other words, the elected people elect a manager, an executive or manager who actually runs the government, hires and fires. That's the key. Who does the hiring and firing? So if they have this one person who's doing the hiring and firing, that's the form of government you have. Otherwise, the council has to do that.
You get the council, then you have the mayor that has executive
Or
veto
in your
authority.
case, the freeholders.
So part of the Open Meetings Act is the ability to record your meetings, which I ran into.
Well, that's not the Open Public Meetings Act. You're talking about a citizen recording, audio, video recording.
Yeah, that's.
That's a common law right, it's nothing to do with the Open Public Meetings Act. That has to do with you have a common law right to videotape in accordance with Taurus versus Pine Hill, Burlington, Supreme Court of New Jersey. You have a common law right, citizens have a common law right to video record, audio and video record public meetings, provided and subject to reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions.
Okay.
And that's your right. That have to be adopted in advance.
So I started, I don't know if you know about this, but I started recording all of our public meetings.
Okay.
And attending them, and now that which actually spurred the town to start doing it on their own, which is a good move. However, one of the
Are they
meetings,
broadcasting it?
yes, live stream, which I was doing as well. But the one thing they did when I was recording the library board meeting, which spurred a whole bunch of conversations. They actually went into executive session. They came out, I started the recording, and they said, because you're recording, we are canceling the meeting.
Okay, well that makes them look ridiculous in my view. I mean, that's like, I don't know, it's a public meeting and the public is there and they want to show other members of the public what's happening at a public meeting, the people who could not attend, and the board should be ashamed of itself.
Okay.
Really?
And there were 0
It's a
people in the
public
audience.
body,
other than
you
It's a
know?
public body. These
Public
people,
body should be public.
to me, it's just a nonsense.
That includes, photographs, video.
So on that issue, what you might want to do is you can send a open request to your town, your school board, saying, I'm interested I might be interested in videotaping and audio recording your public meetings. Please send me any regulations or any policies that you have adopted that would, establish any reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. Now, some of these guys come up with unreasonable restrictions, and they can be challenged in court. I mean, I think that what most of them say is you have to put the camera in the back of the room. You can't walk around with the camera.
Can't lift it on the
You have to make it where people aren't going to trip over it. They can't be making all kinds of whirring noises and things along those lines.
Can't use the electricity.
You can't use our electricity. You got to bring your own power supply because that 2 or 3 cents that you would be using electricity would just break the bank. And you have to have those are probably reasonable. You have to have $1 million liability insurance policy, provide a certificate of insurance.
Or said you had to provide them a copy, the original.
You got to give them the original of the tape, and they'll give it back to you in 5 business days. No, that's not reasonable. So, again, you'd have to challenge the reasonableness of it in court, but that's another thing you can attack on. Or if they don't have any regulations at all, that means it's wide open. They've decided they didn't want to pass regulations, just bring the camera in and set her up.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
You know, John talks a lot about challenging in court, but when you're asked for a copy of an original file or something, it seems to me if you say to them, well, listen, there are people in that room that took notes or took maybe took videos with their own camera or took audio, unless you're going to ask all of them for original copies or copies of whatever they did, to me it's being unfair. So I think sometimes just a little bit of reasonable pushback will get the job done without having to litigate.
I'm assuming they're not going to. You can always try to convince people of stuff. Another thing that I've done, and I've done this a lot, is I'll actually draft a pro se lawsuit. And if anybody wants a copy of a lawsuit, just see what it looks like, I can give you the Word files. But, it's just a lawsuit. So I will draft a copy of the lawsuit and I'll have the word process with draft right across it. And it's basically, you're not doing your meeting minutes right and I want to sue you. I'm suing you. So then I'll send it to the mayor or to the clerk or the copy to the attorney. And I'll say, this is something I think I might want to do, is file this. But in order to save me money and time, in order to save you money and time, would you please discuss this in executive session? Because it is, after all, anticipated litigation covered by 12B7 of the OPMA. Would you please discuss this in the executive session and let me know whether or not you might be willing to settle the lawsuit without me having to go through the exercise of filing it? So that's one way that you can actually get the conversation going. Because the problem is that I find that government agencies generally ignore correspondence. They find, and this is rational for them to do, that to not engage with you is usually safe because their failure to respond or refusal to respond works in their benefit. You just can't get traction because they won't even acknowledge the fact that you're writing a letter. A lawsuit's not a whole lot different than a letter, except that it has a summons attached to it. And if they don't respond to that, that non-response works not to their favor. So they take lawsuits very, 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 very seriously. And they take letters, they ignore them. I'm talking about a town that's just beyond, some of these guys, they're just playing the king of the mountain game. They don't care about anything fair. They're just trying to, they want to run it, they want to control it. That's all they know, it's all they want. They're just animals that just have a single focus, that's it. So if that's the kind of person you're dealing with, then what you want to do is you want to send them the draft lawsuit and say that you're considering filing it. You'd like to have them take a look at it in the executive session and get back to you. That's going to benefit you because it might actually make them do what they would otherwise not do and listen to you and come to an accommodation to adopt a public interest. Or at the very least, what it allows me to do is it allows me to put into my lawsuit that I eventually file that attached as Exhibit A is a copy of the letter that I sent to the mayor and the council asking them if they could avoid the litigation by listening and talking to me and engaging in a dialogue with me so we can get it. I received no response to my inquiry. Okay, now, all this is going to be in front of a judge, and judges are almost always very fair people and they always are looking for people. They don't like, it looks good. It's beneficial for you, not just because of perception, because the actual thing is to really try to work your problems out before you file a lawsuit. Not just to head down to court, the hot-handed lawsuit, you can't wait to get it filed. You want to try to work with people. I have demonstrated my willingness to work with them, and they have refused to talk to me. That makes them, when their lawyer is up in front of that judge, he's going to be looking at them like this, okay? Because, the guy's bending over backwards trying to work with you to do something he feels is in the better interest. You could have at least talked to him, guy. That's kind of how the proceeding will go. So, what happened in Belmar is they weren't really interested in talking to me. So I filed a lawsuit. I think I actually filed, I didn't give them all about it, but I filed a lawsuit. And then as soon as they got it, now they're going to settle the lawsuit. As soon as they realize that you're going to actually put the $250 check down, they realize they're going to lose. Then they say, what do we got to do to make this right? Then you say, here's a settlement agreement. Execute this and we'll file it in court. And now you have a settlement that says that what they were doing is they weren't having minutes at all of their workshop meetings. They would have workshop meetings where all of them sit there, they do it, but they just don't keep any minutes of this. And that's wrong, they can't do that. They're getting away with that for freaking 25 years. I mean, this is a town. And they were, and I'm not talking about Belmar and Monmouth, I'm talking about Belmar and Camp, just make sure, you know, to be clear.
MAWR.
So John, is that settlement agreement a public document?
Oh, settlement agreement is a public document, yeah. It just says that
Okay.
you're from now on out, you're
Right,
going to
yeah,
keep reasonably
that's
comprehensible meetings of your minutes, and that's what you're
Probably,
going to do.
most of you probably already know that,
Yeah.
but it's important. So let's.
But it's really easy, very rarely you actually have to litigate these things. A lot of it is they're really saying, I don't think you're going to file, I don't think you know how. So I send them a copy lawsuit saying, oh, I know how. And then they say, well, we really don't think you're going to do it. And then you file it, and then they say, okay, what do you want to do to settle? That's usually how it works out, almost 100% of the time, because they just don't want to go to court with you. And the other thing is that the other thing they'll say is they'll accuse you of wasting the taxpayers' money through this frivolous litigation, okay? So that's another reason why it's good to put them on notice of the lawsuit and have them give an opportunity to make it right before you actually file. That way, when they say, you filed this lawsuit, you evil person, you say, well, look, I went to you guys. You discussed an executive succession. You told me to go get lost. I mean, what else am I supposed to do, you know? And that gives you credibility when you're dealing with the war of public opinion on the legitimacy of you filing it in the first place. So these are the things I learned, some of it the hard way with dealing with these guys. But any person can enforce the OPMA.
Okay, I'm actually going to have to interrupt at this point. We're getting very close to 9 o'clock, which was our deadline. So there's just a few topics I would like John to comment on, and then we'll take a couple more questions to wind up. So we'll be ending about 9:05. You are all welcome to stay for another 20 or 30 minutes while we kind of pack up, enjoy brownies, enjoy water, and mingle. So just to get started, John, 3 topics. Documents in their native format. Earlier, you talked about documents being emailed. We talked about documents being scanned, which would be a PDF format. But what about Excel documents, Word documents? Like, for example, a budget. Budgets are usually prepared in Excel. Could you get that?
Yeah, you can get it in whatever format you request. And if there is or in some other reasonably, I'd have to look at the actual OPRA. Is this OPRA?
Yeah.
Including recordings, right?
It's under 5, yeah. We'll talk about recordings in a minute. There's a little caveat with recordings. Audio recordings?
Yes.
Okay, I'll tell you about that in a minute. That's a printed matter. We'll go down to 5D. NJSA 47:18-5D is in David. Custodian shall permit access to a government record and provide a copy thereof in a medium requested if the public agency maintains the record in that medium. So if the public agency maintains that record in Excel, and you ask for Excel, you get it.
It helps to say native format, I find. I think Walter's actually said that. Use the phrase native
What
format.
some of them try to do is give it to you as a PDF, which means you can't manipulate the numbers. You know,
Can't search.
you lose all the Excel capabilities.
Yeah, then you have to convert it back to Excel. So there's
Which you
3
can-
levels.
Sometimes you can do, sometimes
You
you can't.
want Excel. If you don't get Excel, you probably can tolerate a readable PDF. The kind of PDF that you get if you go into Excel and say save as PDF.
You can also like tab the limited text or something.
Tab the limited
There are
text
some
and do that.
options.
Or, but what someone will do is they'll want to print out a copy of the Excel thing, then scan that in and give you that. Okay, so the public agency does not maintain the record in the medium requested. The custodian will either convert the record to the medium requested or provide a copy in some other meaningful medium. So the legislature's thought about this. You get the record in a meaningful format.
Sometimes you have to push a little bit because they'll often
Yeah, but that's what you
print
do.
it, scan it to PDF.
If you ask for the
That's
Excel
very
file-
clear
That
it's
was the
Excel.
very
Okay, so that was number 1. There's 2 more. Can you talk about the C website response when you get that response, and the other is government records held by third parties?
I don't care about the C website. Everybody gets all, other people, my colleagues, get all bent out of shape over an agency saying, see the website for this record, this thing. You know what I do? I go to the website, I get the record, I say thank you very much. I don't say, I need to have the record, your job is it. I just think that's silly. And I think that if now I have had times where Spotswood Board of Education, they send me to this incomprehensible website that has you can't find anything on this website. It's like a pit of data in a URL, you can't find it. They say your document's on there, and then I'm like, no, it is. If it is, I sure as heck can't find it after 45 minutes of looking. So there, you can't. I would go back to them and say, I'll take it on the website. You got to give me a specific URL of exactly where this document is. Okay, that's cool. Or direct me to what keys I got to hit to get to it, because I've been looking here for 45 minutes. I can't find it. Okay, so don't tell me to see website. But if you have a website where they say Township Committee, meeting minutes, January 9th, 2017, and I got to go click, click, click to get there, they can tell you to see that. But probably, truth be told, you could say, you could go to the GRC and make them give you an actual copy of the document. So you don't have to go to the website and get it. But I think that I'm a big believer in, I am not looking to take out any municipal clerks here. I'm not looking to give people a hard time here. I'm looking to get government information. That is my sole purpose in doing it. I'm not trying to prove a point. I'm not trying to make any, now I might try to find a case that will, if I litigate it, expand public records for everyone. But I'm not looking, there's nothing personal between me and a records custodian where I want to make that person's life miserable. And there are people, and I want to go on the record saying this, there are people who don't share that point of view. I have no respect for those people. If you've got a chip on your shoulder, and this town did something to you, and you're going after that clerk by filing OPRA request after OPRA request, and you don't want the information, you just want to make that clerk's life miserable, I think there's a special place in hell for you. Because what you were doing is you were destroying a valuable tool by giving the opponents of OPRA Exhibit A and why OPRA has to be limited because of people like you. Okay? So do everybody a favor, and if you've got a beef with a particular town or a particular clerk, you go talk to that clerk, man to man, woman to woman, whatever, about the problem you have. But do not sully OPRA with your personal problem. Because what you're doing, and I could name people that do this, but I will not. I don't have any respect for them, and I will call them out if I see them doing it. So do not do that. Use OPRA for its intended purpose, which is to put accessible documents in the hands of people who need them, citizens. This is the point of OPRA, not to use it as a sword to be able to make the life miserable, because you can, but it's not the right thing to do.
Okay, I just want to say that we have, especially in PA, a lot of members who are senior citizens who don't really use a computer, so if
That's different.
if they're going to the clerk and they fill out physically in OPRA form, they're able to get it.
Yeah, I think in that case, well, it's all contingent
Well,
on the service.
isn't the rule if they say, well, that's on our website, if they don't have access to a website, then they can request it through the paper and understand.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes along, this is sort of in the same camp as, you know how you used to hear the voice messages, you used to say that, you know, if you don't have a touch-tone phone, you just wait on the line for the operator to come up. Now you don't hear that so much anymore because everybody's got a touch-tone phone, or everybody's got something, nobody has dial-up service, you know, nobody has anymore. So this is a temporary problem that's going to resolve as more people just get with the program of the internet. The internet's here to stay, it's not just a passing fad. And people need to get conversant. Yes, if you are a person who does not have access to the internet for whatever reason, or cannot do it, or maybe have a physical disability that prevents you from doing it, and you need a paper copy of the record, tell the clerk when they send you, you got to go to the web to get it. Say, call them up and say, look, I can't go to the web. Can you give it to me in paper? Because that's the way I want it. And then I think then the clerk will be wrong not to accompany your request. Because again, it's reasonable.
Okay, could you mention just a little bit, government records held by third parties? If they say, well, we don't have that, it's at our attorney's office.
Go get it.
It's their obligation to retrieve it for you.
Yeah, yes it is. It's their obligation to retrieve it.
So that's the answer to that. We
Well,
have
it's a
one or
little
two
more
more
nuanced.
questions for maybe people we haven't heard from. In the back. Go ahead.
John, since 2015, I have done 2 pro se GRC complaints, and it was an interesting experience to see the process. But one problem that I've noticed, my 2 cases were Rozzi v. Lacey Township Board of Education, that was over the special service fee, and my second case was Rozzi v. Ocean County Prosecutor's Office. And for both of those cases, I filed them in 2015, and it took me until 2017 to finally get a ruling on it.
Yeah.
So my question is, how do we fix the GRC and make it useful again?
I don't know.
What's GRC?
The Government Records Council. See, OPRA can be enforced, for just to go back a little bit, the OPRA can be enforced by either the Superior Court and the Government Records Council, which is a state agency that was set up by OPRA. The OPRA calls for a thing called the GRC. That is an agency in Trenton that you can file a denial of access complaint. There's advantages and disadvantages. The advantages are few and the disadvantages are many. As Gavin was saying, it takes them like 2 years to come up with an adjudication of your case. So since the point of OPRA is to have ready, prompt access to available records, when you add a 2-year period in there to get them, it kind of, you know, undermines that. Second thing is the GRC cannot handle the common law access. They have no jurisdiction. So when you sue in Superior Court, you sue under OPRA and the common law right of access. If you win under either one, you get the record. GRC can only sue under OPRA.
Also, Governor Christie has been very bad in appointing people to the GRC. So as a result, its workload is very slow.
And it's also, there's a lot of conflicts of interest because certain people can't. You have some permanent conflicts of interest. The cases can never be heard because you don't have a quorum of the GRC that can actually hear the case. And these are problems. And the people at GRC are good people. There's not, again, that they're doing the best they can in the circumstances, and I think they are trying to make some improvements. But I still go through the GRC on certain cases. The one thing the GRC will do is it'll slavishly follow its precedent. If it decided in 2008 that this is so, you point out to them, this is the same thing that's happening now that happened in 2008 in this case, you can pretty much be guaranteed the GRC is going to say, we're going to make them do the same thing we made this one do in 2008. There isn't a whole lot of, they follow it. The second thing is they are not offended by technical applications where a judge might sit there and get impatient and say, you know, this seems so trivial. You shouldn't bring this. This is silly. Why are you bringing this? The GRC will actually take almost an academic case and they'll actually adjudicate it. The problem is it takes so long, and attorneys don't want to do it. They will issue attorney's fees if you win. So a lot of times you could go through an attorney to file a GRC complaint. And I'm not trying to like waste taxpayers' money, but sometimes the idea of them having to pay attorney's fees, if a town council has to pay attorney's fees, like a Raritan in Somerset County, they paid a boatload of attorney's fees because they did a bad denial about payroll stuff, and they got condemned by the media, by the voters, the citizens were up in arms at the meetings, like, how could you guys do this? So there's a blowback factor that when the town has to pay attorney's fees, so the taxpayers don't like that. So sometimes it ups the ante when you have a winning GRC case to bring it through an attorney, even though you were capable of doing it yourself, because it raises the stakes of a loss for the township because they actually have to pay your attorney's fees and then face the voters and citizens in the public meeting who are angry at them because they frittered away taxpayer dollars because they denied you a record they ought not have. Okay? The second reason, but what most people do if you really need the records is they go to the Superior Court. Because the Superior Court takes like 8 weeks to get to an order to show cause, and you're going to get some traction on your case. So the GRC, yeah, I would say that the GRC operated in like less than 6 months. It'd be a lot more useful. I think the biggest problem facing the GRC is I can live without the common law right of access because a lot of the cases have a clear access, have a clear right to the case, have a clear right to the files. And though most times I don't want to wait 18 months or 2 years to get a copy of the documents. But that's.
Just
Let's
want to
hope the
comment.
next governor appoints peoples and.
I'm not sure if that's going to fix the whole problem. Your answer is how to fix it. Maybe more funding, maybe more case managers, maybe demanding that the GRC do more with less. I don't know what the solution is, but I think they have gotten a little bit better.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a matter. I don't hate the GRC. I kind of like. I'm a little frustrated with it because it's really a good idea. They could have taken care of a lot of these little problems, and they could have taken care of some of these things expeditiously. But like so many government agencies, you're talking to a libertarian here, so I'm not a big fan of the wonders of big government. But I mean, they seem to predict them. They seem to fall into a familiar pattern where government agencies tend to like just wrap themselves in rules and regulations.
The original idea of setting up the GRC with an executive director was kind of based on the Connecticut and New York state models, where if there's a dispute between a citizen and a government agency, the executive director might do something as casual as pick up the phone and call the clerk and say, well, you know, what are you giving this guy a hard time for? You know, if this comes before us, we're going to rule against you. Why don't you just sit down with the guy and work out your problems? And in a lot of cases that works. We thought that would happen in New Jersey, but it instantly became political.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. So, you know, but I mean, the idea is I'm not looking for an abolition of the GRC. I just wish the GRC would find itself to do a better job than what's currently doing. I think it could really serve the citizens well if it did its job. I think it does do its job, it just doesn't do it quickly enough.
Yeah, we'd like to see them intervene and advise clerks. That would be nice as Ron talked about. That was the hope for the original hope. Okay, so in your folders, there's a one-page document called How to Get Government Records Under OPRA. That's a great jam-packed with detailed summary, one page of the process for making a request and what your recourses are. So it's all here. If you just read that one page, you'll be that much further ahead. So listen, maybe one more question, and then we got to wind up the evening. How's that? Anybody?
Anybody that hasn't asked a question yet,
Is there,
let's give them an
is
opportunity
Tom the only
first.
one?
Who
Nobody?
hasn't asked a
Okay.
question yet?
If not, go to one of the old standards. That would be you.
You're on.
Is there a next level, this is a future leaning, it seems in today's technology that OPRA is it should be useless, we shouldn't have the need for it. You have stuff like Dropbox, where if the town just put in all of the
Non-private.
private data, they could just drop it into Dropbox, maybe put a title on it, and then allow public access to it. And I'm kind of confused, why towns aren't going into that and still forcing OPRA, because OPRA you actually have to know what document you're looking for. But why not, why shouldn't towns move towards having total openness?
A lot of
There's
it's,
the spirit of cooperation, right?
Read
John?
1984.
The clerk is really supposed to be.
1984, the book.
Talk about how information is the key to controlling people.
Yeah.
and it is kind of true. I mean, I see that in even private organizations, that I belong to. The people, I control the information. I don't think I want you to know that, because I know if I control the information, I have power. So I think a lot of it is that. The government, they don't want you to know what they're doing, because and I think some of the information that I developed, I'd be embarrassed if they do that about me too. So there's some of that, but a lot of it I think is just a cultural thing. The clerks have done it this way. She's a good clerk, and she's been here for, since the 1970s, and she's not really up on her game on how to do things like this, so we can't really teach her. Yeah, there are institutional reasons why, we don't have a website. It costs us too much money to put one up. We don't know how to do it. We don't have the skill sets, so we just keep doing it the same way we've always done it, because that's always been good enough, and we don't understand. There's that kind of a mindset too. There's lots of reasons why they don't do it. And I think that one thing you're doing in Berkeley Heights, if you can actually, this doesn't have to be the first iteration of that. The next one could be something like what you're talking about. Your checkbook register has to be up online. You've got to create a spec that's going to be that every check you write, within 24 hours after writing, it goes up on the database. And everybody can look at, you paid so-and-so. There has to be a confidential informative comp or something. You can redact that out or whatever. But there's a way to make all this work. And then you'd have it where we point to that as an example. Berkeley Heights is doing it. Why can't you do it here in Fanwood? And maybe having something like that. There's the inertia is an object at rest tends to stay at rest until I can bond by another force. That's essentially what's going on here. You got minutes being kept the same way they were being kept in like 1945, and that's
They're actually going around OPRA, I'm finding too, because instead of, when they know that they don't want to create a record, they'll have phone conversations, and you can see that they've kind of...
people do that, and you're always going to have that.
Yeah.
But that's why we're getting there, and I think that these are some of the things you're not going to be able to solve through legislation.
Okay, on that note.
Can I jump in on that real quick?
Sure.
Sorry, my name's Joe. I think what you'll find there is the answer really is that there's no desire to actually have transparency, right? And they certainly don't want the scrutiny. So that's why you see most governmental organizations push back around this. I've found that probably the best way for you to change that is that if you are, it's very difficult as an outsider, but it becomes much easier if you become an insider. So that, to become part of the system and to basically put the pressure on, and you have to keep, John, I know you're not a fan of beating with OPRA for potential loss of OPRA, but there are some times that you have to keep that pressure on some of these organizations.
Absolutely put pressure on public agencies to be transparent. That's the point of OPRA. I'll make sure that I never said that's not a valid use of OPRA.
Right.
The purpose of OPRA is that I don't believe it is a good purpose of OPRA, is because you have a personal problem with a town because of something that they did. You got fired. Your wife got fired, and now you're using that OPRA, using that very, very valuable tool of OPRA to punish the people who visited harmed on you. That is not an appropriate. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, I think that a lot of towns, if you knew the true measure of what they've been doing, I would, if I was them, I don't want to keep it I would want the last thing I would want is transparency.
But back to Tom now, really quick, sorry. Tom, I think the answer really is, if you get a relationship with somebody that's in that organization, and you start to basically push them a little bit and say, hey, look, why don't you just start to put this on your website? And I think if you find a friendly inside, they'll work the rest of the inside, and you'll end up with an ordinance or a resolution, depending on the organization, that says, here you go.
A newly elected council person from an opposite party, for instance.
Right.
That would be a person
Listen,
to.
it's
Okay.
9:15, I know some folks are getting.
Boss is telling us to stop.
Yep, we're gonna have to call it an evening. You're welcome to stay for about the next 15, 20 minutes or so while we pack up, mingle, enjoy the snacks.
Thank you all for
There
coming.
are plenty of
Thank you all.
resources on our website, check it out. And one more comment, both NJFOG and TPA are nonprofit charities and organizations that are welcome to donations and gifts to members of the NJFOG. Thank you so much.
How